Hi, my name is Chris, and today I'd like to talk about esoteric spirituality. What I mean by that is the aspects of spirituality that are cloaked in mystery, symbols, hidden meanings, the minutiae, the paths, the breaking down and breaking down and breaking down of planes and levels and states of consciousness and desired outcomes. It's a world of diversity, a world of intricacy, and a world of complexity. And I believe that we have something to say about that and about the impact of that on the perception of what spirituality is globally. That by breaking spirituality down into a million little pieces, by assigning special value to certain rituals and thought systems and approaches, there can be a shattering of spirituality and a shattering and dispersal of results rather than integration. And I'd like to talk about that today. First of all, I'd like to say that spirituality as such is very, very simple. The only complexity that we find in spirituality is that there's complexity in guilt. In other words, we're in a world of guilt, and guilt is a complex idea because it's filled with a breakdown of meaning. In other words, if you started with a single block of granite and then added a drop of a corrosive substance that broke it down into rocks and then broke those rocks down into sand and so forth, you'd end up with a billion little pieces of sand instead of one big slab of granite. So, in other words, the truth as it exists is simple, basic, and easy to understand. But guilt, as we're dealing with it in the world, creates complexity and confusion and diffuses meaning in a million different ways. I recently heard somebody speak about a famous occultist, and they talked about how this person spoke in symbols and in riddles and had a very deep and complex understanding of the mysteries. But my feeling is that there's nothing mysterious about spirituality, and while it's sexy and interesting to feel like you're part of something mysterious and bizarre and filled with hidden meaning, the truth is that reality as such is plain as day. It's very simple and straightforward. What it is that defies meaning, that defies clarity, which defies simple understanding, is based in guilt. What we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to get to, is a state where everything is very simple. Our existence is simple. We have unlimited options and freedom to explore a wide variety of experiences. So it's not simple in the sense of being boring, but it is limited in that we no longer would partake in any form of guilt-based activities or feelings or thoughts. No violence, no competition, no drudgery, no work, no fear, no anger, and no suffering. This is our ultimate goal. There is, along this path, really no room for ego-based gratification. In other words, if we're practicing a path which is filled with elitism, which is filled with a sense that you are discovering something special that other people don't have access to, which requires special invitation, which requires special understanding taught by secret teachers and special masters and certain rituals and requires initiations and so forth, then that has nothing to do with spirituality at all. I think there has to be a new classification, something that can describe these kinds of paths and techniques and approaches. I would say that it's all pseudo spirituality, because while it postures as spirituality, it is in fact a way to continue to be involved in the illusion, which means being still involved with guilt, which means still carrying hatred around in your heart. So behind all this mysteriousness and complexity and levels and layers and initiations and secrets and a million different deities and a million different approaches and a million different explorations, it's all really an exploration of the emptiness that is guilt. And as the Course says, complexity as we think of it in physical reality is not necessarily complexity in the sense of higher complexity, because love is very complex, multi-layered, multifaceted, but at the same time very simple and straightforward as well. The complexity within the world of love, in the world of guiltlessness, is that anything is possible that doesn't involve guilt, and we have total freedom to never be bored, to never be dissatisfied, to never be wanting. The complexity in guilt, while fascinating, brings guilt with it, so that the curse of guilt goes with that complexity, and the suffering and agony of being involved in that illusion is always with us. We can't separate it from the complexity that we see in physical reality. If we're to get to reality, to truth, then we can't make a game of it. At some point, we have to stop squirming, stand up, and really march up the steps. We have to stop procrastinating. I think this is fundamental to everyone's spiritual practice everywhere. There's hesitancy. There's a kind of holding back that can occur. We keep looking for new teachers, new systems, new ways of doing. But really, it's all very simple. Essentially, we are choosing between guilt and guiltlessness within our own mind. At some level, we are deciding what we want. And if we're not in guiltlessness, if we're living in guilt, it's because we want it. And that's something that's very, very hard to face, because consciously we may not even feel that way. But the truth is, if we wanted guiltlessness, we would be there. We're learning to choose guiltlessness over guilt. We're choosing the world that we want. We're changing what we want. Now, if we could see and experience the world of guiltlessness perfectly, I think we would have no doubt at all in our mind, and we would instantly leave. But we're working through our remaining attachment to guilt, so we can't do that. However, we can make major shifts in our understanding merely by reaching points where we get so fed up with the suffering and frustration and ridiculousness of physical life that we are willing, all of a sudden, to let guiltlessness in. And when that happens, we undergo a transformative change within ourselves, and guiltlessness makes a home in our heart. As long as we're involved in the game, we can be calling it spirituality all we want, but it's nothing but another form of self-deception. I don't think that pseudo spirituality is dangerous per se, like it's some sort of snake that's trying to deceive us in the garden and take away our spiritual opportunities. No, the truth is what it's always been, that it's always our choice, and we have to figure out what matters. Now, if we're desperately trying to find out what's real, if we're exploring every nook and cranny of the occult world, of the spiritual world that we can possibly get our hands on to attempt to understand what's going on in the world, then it's an expression of our evolution, and it can be in a way a step up. We can be introduced in this sort of borderland spiritual world to ideas that will lead us up and out. So it's not completely valueless or worthless. Practices like meditation, visualization, all these things can be useful tools for us spiritually. However, at some point we do have to acknowledge that the path is simple. And this is my second major point in all of this, that we must let go of the idea of spiritual invention. I've always been very hung up personally with the idea of being unique and doing something that no one else has done. And I was really convinced that that was an important part of my spiritual path. But now, a little bit older and wiser, I begin to understand that we can't reinvent the wheel. And essentially the wheel is at the center of all this. There's a single truth, like a wheel, that's already been invented, it's already been done. We can't bring our ego along. We can't get the satisfaction of creating something new. We're going back to something that already exists. We're not bringing anything new or unique to it, except for the fact that we're bringing ourselves back, which is massively important. There's the uniqueness of our individuality, but that's not really something that we're creating. In other words, we're not really creating anything here. All we're doing is we're shifting. We're shifting from a guilt-based world to a guiltless-based world. We're changing back to a world of consciousness. And we're doing that with the intention of getting out of suffering. So the idea of invention at a spiritual level has to go. And the esoteric world of spirituality, it's very much tied up in the idea of interesting spirituality, unique spirituality, and the idea of invention, innovation, and specialness. You know, I've achieved the X level of the Y system of mystical mastery or whatever. But there are so many dimensions we can explore, and they all tend to contain within them some degree of deception. Even practices like out-of-body travel, meditation, have dark alleyways that lead off to confusion. They won't in and of themselves free us, although they can be used as tools to get us there. Ultimately, the purity of our intention is very important. In other words, we want to get free. We want to get out of guilt. The question of how to do that is really simple. We just practice. We work. We move in that direction until we have those aha moments and we begin to understand what it is we're working towards. And then we begin to integrate it into our identity so that day after day we get closer to our goal. But ultimately, it's not about uniqueness or invention, and it's not about the esoteric aspects of spiritual practice. We must put away teachers and systems and mysteries and symbols and simply get back to the bare bones practice of going home. It's a little bit sad, I know, to think that we really can't bring anything home with us that's special or unique. But all our unique experiences as human beings in this life and others will all be brought with us. The important thing is that we'll be happy and we'll be free, even if we can't create something new in the process. The fear of boredom is a huge aspect of what holds us back, that we're terrified of losing what guilt offers us because we believe that it's special, that it has some hidden pleasure that's of value to us and that we should hold on to. But all pleasures that exist here exist in higher consciousness. There's nothing that we can enjoy in this world that we would encounter someone with angry face and crossed arms saying, no, you can't do that here. You know, this is not a special place where we get to do the naughty or bad things that are fun. The only thing you can't do at higher levels is anything involving harming others or yourself. Anything that involves aggression, competition, manipulation, brutality, hate. Other than that, you're free. So yes, obviously this is the place to have the experiences that involve negative feelings and hostility and combat and so forth. But beyond that, all pleasure in all forms exists in higher consciousness, in spirit, and is ours to enjoy forever, without any censorship, without anyone telling us that it's wrong or bad. So to sum up what I'm trying to say here, keep your practice simple. Remember that no matter how many aspects your practice has, no matter how many various things you do, there is no secret mystery, no special path, no special understanding or initiation that you have to go through. What it really comes down to is your intention. And if you intend to get free from guilt and to return to guiltlessness, and you want it more and more every day, and you understand what you're moving toward more clearly every day, then you're on the right path. However, if you're wandering around in the murky, gray, in the astral worlds, in the worlds of mysteries and concepts and dreams, complexity, symbols, initiations, rituals, masters and teachers and hierarchies, then don't fool yourself. You're just procrastinating. Spirituality isn't spirituality unless it removes you from the source of your suffering. That's at the very heart of it. And if you don't want to get free, then don't bother calling it spirituality. Thanks, and have a great week ahead.